A quick warning before we begin. This episode contains strong and offensive language. All emails are taken from originals sent to Hannah, voiced by actors. And I'm sorry for my croaky voice. I've lost my voice a bit.
Please remember to take all your personal items with you when you leave the train.
At the end of the last episode, we left you with Georgia and Rob, the producers, boarding a train.
I'd say it's probably been worth it.
Heading back to London.
Definitely.
From Surrey.
Weird.
We've just learned that Kin is the co-owner of a house in a small, affluent town in Surrey. The same town where some of his old companies were based. Where we've just been asking around.
One of them said they'd taken a couple of calls recently.
Staff at a shared office space his companies were registered at remembered taking some strange calls.
A man calling on Kin's behalf, saying don't accept any post for him.
And she said she was a little bit thrown by it, wasn't she?
Thought it was a bit
odd.
But that's not the only thing we found out. In this Surrey town,
People knew him by David.
people seem to know Kin by the name David. In the fashion world, those we've spoken to know him as Kin. As for David, well, we did know that Kin sometimes used that name.
Hey, this is David.
Like
Hope
in
all
an
is
email.
well, and this email finds you
We've
well.
seen that Hannah was CC'd in on.
Hope to catch up with you soon, David.
Do you remember him using the name David?
Yes, I do. He set up a Facebook account as the name David.
It's pretty common in Hong Kong for people to take a Western name as well as their Chinese one. So the name in itself isn't especially interesting or unusual. But what is surprising is the descriptions we've been hearing of David. Very different from those we've heard of Kin.
Just going to the Dolce & Gabbana catwalk.
International
Hey,
jet
I have
setter.
Wimbledon tickets for tomorrow's Centre Court ladies final.
And that is odd.
From BBC Sounds, this is Stalked.
It's bizarre.
I'm Carole Cadwalladr.
And I'm Hannah Mossman-Moore.
It's just another thing that doesn't quite add up.
Episode 10. David. London is surrounded by a network of satellite towns, commuter towns. You know, pretty easy to get into the capital, but much more space, greener, sometimes a bit cheaper, not always. And it's in one of these that Georgia and Rob find themselves on a spring day a couple of weeks ago. There's a small high street, the usual big supermarkets and coffee chains, and a cinema. There's a lot of greenery, parks, gardens, families, people walking dogs. It's got a sleepy feel to it. In fact, while Georgia and Rob are there, the busiest part of the town seems to be the train station, where most of the people are heading in the opposite direction, going into work in the capital.
Let's go and
Get on the bikes.
Georgia and Rob visit places in the town that they know are associated with Kin and, cautiously, start talking to people. The people they meet give them some small snippets of information about David. They describe David as a quiet man, almost reclusive, the kind of person who would actively avoid trying to talk to you if he could. He's not often seen walking around the streets, but sometimes he does go out jogging. Sometimes he's accompanied by a woman, the same woman we've seen in photos with Kin, including one in an email sent to Hannah.
Hi, Hannah. There is no hacker, just his long-term
saying
life
that she
partner
was his
trying to
long-term
find out the
partner.
truth. We were at Naples Beach Hotel when picture was taken a few days before I left Florida.
We're told that they are a couple. And there's some things that people describe that are a bit odd as well.
One thing that's a bit strange is his house.
This is...
No way. Is that it?
Yep.
So you can see it here on Street View.
From everything you know about Kin, if you had to picture his house in Surrey, what would it look like?
I mean, he would frequently send me a deck for a property that was worth millions.
A country house with a difference. Hey, I viewed Hillfield
That was
Castle.
like a
What do you think of
penthouse,
this penthouse?
castle.
17 million to 13 million.
It would be consistent with that. It would have to be a big, flashy, Surrey kind of footballer's
Executive
mansion.
home. Yeah, oh right.
Really high spec. Pool, tennis courts.
This is a small brick-built, 60s housing estate type house of a type which are all around the country. Net curtains, kind of moss on the roof.
It just looks really decrepit.
Everybody else has got their pin neat lawns, nice plants and freshly painted garage doors and everything, haven't they?
Yeah.
And then go back to Kin and it's got that sort of really closed up, shuttered look, hasn't it?
It's not taken care of.
It doesn't look like anybody's been there for a long time. So something else which is at odds with this house, pretty decrepit, very modest, is that he is nevertheless spotted by people in the area driving expensive, flashy cars.
Every time I met him, he had a different car. Most of the time, it would be quite a fancy car.
So the people that we've spoken to say that they think these cars are hired, but they don't know. They suggested maybe it's different cars for different events. Done a bit of digging, and we can see from public documents that Kin has been involved in various disputes over alleged unpaid debts. So one resulted in him paying a £3,000 settlement after being sued over unpaid legal fees. That dispute involved Kin's chocolate company.
The company was founded from a potential partner.
The company that we mentioned earlier in the series.
But the relationship didn't go forward. After a while, we asked him to close it.
So the chocolate company was put into compulsory liquidation. That indicates the company had financial problems.
Let me know if there are any issues that we need to investigate.
And as often, that's initiated when a company can't pay its debts. The land registry documents for Kin's house also detail something called an interim charging order, meaning that in the event of a sale, he would have to pay off a debt to the local council first. We don't know how much that is. When it comes to finding out more about Kin, it definitely feels like we're in the right place. But the outside of this shabby house, with the curtains drawn, the car underneath the cover, moss on the windowsills, it gives us the impression that it hasn't been lived in for some time. So Georgia and Rob leave the town feeling like there's still a lot more to uncover.
I suppose the thing we were trying to really ascertain is how much is he actually around? I wouldn't say it's been easy kind of finding more information, but I was able to speak to someone and that person told me that they'd seen him the day before.
Ah.
And I was also told, I think about a week after that, that someone had seen him again.
Shit.
So he is living there now.
Yeah. That's crazy. I never imagined him to be this close.
When we started this podcast, we had no idea where in the world Kin actually was. We thought he would probably be in Hong Kong.
Hot properties, city skylines.
He could have been chillaxing in his multi-million-pound property on the peak of Hong Kong Island.
Living there is a symbol of wealth and prestige.
The one we saw the pictures of, looking down over the city.
Ceiling to floor windows with the most beautiful panoramic views. You can see the city, the sea, mountains.
But like that luxury property and his so-called crash pad in the expensive part of central London, Kin never actually owned any of them. Instead, it looks like he's probably been behind the closed curtains we can see in a shabby house in London's commuter belt. while making this podcast, the only interaction we've had with Kin has been through his London lawyers. Through them, Kin vehemently denies ever stalking or harassing Hannah. There's been a lot of back and forth with this law firm.
Dear Kin.
But there are a number of specific points we've put to Kin that remain unanswered. Questions about his role in the fashion industry, the so-called hackers, what we believe were impersonations, and even the properties he's had access to. So, we invited Kin for an interview.
For our podcast, should you wish to take up the offer?
The answer is a hard no. Through his lawyers, Kin says he wouldn't receive fair treatment from us. So, what's the score? Are we allowed to go knock on the door? What do you think?
I think it's really difficult because of the law firm responding to some but not all of the things to Kin.
Have got a way to access Kin. Right? So it's not like we have no way of contacting him.
But these are public interest questions. We've talked a lot in this series about Hannah's stalker, which the evidence we've seen suggests is Kin. So we've wanted to understand who he is as much as we can. But the story is really about Hannah and what she's been through. And that is something that's resonated in ways I don't think any of us anticipated when we first started making this series.
So yeah, we've had so many people contact us. So some of these are people who've got their own experiences of stalking, and some who have messages for you directly, Hannah. And we're going to play some of them now.
Yeah, some of them have wanted to use their names, others haven't. There really were a lot of people who in touch but couldn't send on messages because they're still going through some, experiencing stalking right now, and it's too risky for them to do that.
Hi, I'm Caroline from the Netherlands, and your story was so relatable to me because I've been stalked online by a stranger myself. The situation took over my life, that feeling of someone knowing so much about you, while you have no idea who they are. And I was in tears when I heard the recording of Alice, almost apologizing for calling the police, because my first call with them went exactly the same way. Although my story is a bit different. The police took me seriously from the beginning, that I can finally move on with my life. I didn't want the stalker to win.
Because I'm aware of the press and the coverage that stalking doesn't get, podcasts like this I think are really critical. I think I'm actually a police officer in New Zealand, so I'm dealing with a current case, can't really talk about it, but it's concerning. So I'm just listening to as much as I can. So there's no real direct stalking legislation at the moment. It's under harassment, which can create confusion for some police. And that's why it's piqued my interest with your podcast as well. Just learning as much as I can.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I know maybe even just a handful of women off the top of my head who have dealt with stalking. And I feel like it is way more prevalent than anybody actually wants to acknowledge. I have really enjoyed the podcast. It resonated with me because it gave a lot of information to people who may not be aware of what it feels like and how damaging it can be, even if it's just online. Online is still a place. People like to think of it as not being real, but it's still very harmful. I'm an actor, and I was in one of my first national commercials a few years ago, and somehow this man was able to get my contact information because he liked the commercial, I guess. And he would email me and call and text, and I would block him, and then he would find me or find a way to contact me on a different platform. That only went on for a few weeks, but even just that was enough to be really unsettling.
Hi there, this is a message for the Stalked podcast. I have listened to all of it and I've just been blown away by the bravery, absolute vulnerability shown. Handing over your emails, that's a really, really exposing place to be. Hannah, I think you're a true hero and you should be really proud of yourself standing up for this cause. If it can stop one more person, it's worth it. Well done.
My stalker and I met 10 years ago. Yeah, we hit it off. We went on a date. After that date, I realised that it wasn't something I wanted to pursue. I currently have an intervention order. Regardless, my stalker has broken these several times. They have been in and out of prison for breaking the intervention order. My stalker would send me thousands of emails and messages on Instagram through people that I knew, sometimes through my bosses. It was so exhausting because it was my responsibility to explain to people that this person was stalking me. And I think a lot of people could just be like, just ignore it, just don't open those emails. Why don't you just block them? You don't need to worry about them, it's all online. All of my social media is very private. I would like to be able to be more present, but I haven't been able to because of my stalker. I don't think I have really comprehended until recently, and this podcast has really helped me do this, just how exhausting it is to constantly be worried that someone's going to try to contact you, try to find you because of your podcasts. It's made me have empathy for myself, which I never really did. I do really mean that it helped me.
I thought that was really touching, the bit where she said it, have empathy for myself.
Yeah, obviously it's heartbreaking to hear that other people go through it, but we know that they do. So in a way it's nice to hear that they found it useful or helpful or supportive.
It's not just listeners who've been sharing their experiences with us.
Come on in. So beautiful. Hi.
Remember Alicia, not her real name?
I do the samples and then we make everything to order.
Whose show Kin turned up at.
I've got a sort of similar story.
Alicia tells Hannah that, like her, when she was younger, she met a man who she thought might be able to help her with her career.
So I met him outside at a Fashion Week event having a cigarette, and we got talking, and I'd seen him around at Fashion Week. It seems like a safe place, you've got to be accredited to get in. He tells me he's a buyer from Harvey Nichols, Hong Kong. Gives me his email. Like you, I was very excited. Start emailing back and forth. He says, "I'll come to my office somewhere really random." I called Harvey Nichols Hong Kong. I spoke to them and said, "Does this guy work for you?" And they said no.
And at that point, alarm bells started ringing for Alicia. So she started looking into this man's background.
I spoke to the British Fashion Council and said, "Look, this guy is pretending to be from Harvey Nichols. He keeps coming into the Fashion Week events. Who is he?"
Alicia never met up with this man, but she did flag the incident with the organisers of London Fashion Week. And as it turns out, he's a faker. We've looked into him. He's not kin, by the way. But it's a person who's known for doing this kind of thing to get into events for free. There's even a word for people like him in the UK, a blagger. And this guy's a master at it.
No matter kind of the details, it's always so similar, isn't it? Men just wanting power over women. And it's just really sad. It's really sad.
So we didn't have an episode last week because I had this weird experience. I was sued over a TED talk I gave 6 years ago, and I went back there this week to give another talk. It's the kind of most prestigious tech conference in the world. I did show some examples of abuse, you know, some of the hate and abuse and violence that I was receiving. And it was quite funny because it just reminded me of the discussion we'd had about using that language in this podcast. I think it's really hard until it happens to you to understand the drip, drip, drip nature of this stuff. Making the series that we did an interview with Laura Bates, who's this amazing writer who runs a site called Everyday Sexism. And she was the first person to draw this link between my own experiences and what we were doing with Hannah's story. Just hadn't occurred to me before.
You know, when I sort of started thinking about Hannah's story and first started talking to Georgia, I really didn't connect this story with my own experience online as well.
You're kidding. It's wild. I mean, that you could not have thought of your own case, to me, is just mind-blowing, because it's one of the worst, most egregious examples I've ever seen of incredibly high-profile, public, ongoing, various different forms of abuse. Nobody would expect a woman to have to walk to work every day to what we would think of as a normal offline job, with men lining the streets to scream abuse at them as they went and throughout their working day. Would be considered utterly outrageous and intolerable. And yet that is the situation that we seem to accept as a normal part of working life now for women whose lives involve being online.
And I suppose, we see it with public figures all the time. And now, as we see in the case of Hannah, we also see it in just the lives of just, ordinary young women going about their lives. It's the same process, essentially, we're seeing, isn't it?
The last sort of emails that I was receiving from a fake escort company.
Hello, Hooker Hanny.
They named it Hooker Hanny, and it was like just so embarrassing. They would send me pictures of like urine and feces.
What to do when you're passionate about drinking pee and eating poop.
4 times a day. So gross and so embarrassing that I'm even embarrassed to tell you some of it now.
I think it's that real intermingling of misogynistic tropes in society, stigma against women who are seen to be sexually empowered, then intermingling with forms of harassment and abuse. I think it's hard for people to really imagine and really think, how would it feel to have that happen to you?
So back to Kin. We know where Kin lives and we know that he's there. And it's really frustrating because we want to go and knock on his door and just put questions to him. However, Rob, you've got some news from the lawyers, haven't you?
Yeah. The advice is that we shouldn't be knocking on his door. And that's essentially because he's already answered some of the questions. He's denied stalking or harassing Hannah. He's done that through a law firm, and I reached out to him, for example, to do an interview independent of them. We didn't hear back from Kin, we heard back from his lawyers saying no. That's indicative of the process where we find ourselves now, in the sense of he's not really answered a lot of these other questions we have around what happened to Hannah, but the main thrust of what we're investigating, which is who stalked Hannah, like we have an answer to that. So it puts us in a bit of a difficult position because he is a person who has a right to privacy, as we all do. If we have a way of contacting him, just because we're not getting the answers to all the questions we feel we deserve, doesn't necessarily mean we can just knock on his door.
And if that seems frustrating to listeners listening to the podcast, think about what that is like to be a victim.
Does it matter to you, Hannah, now that we think we know where he is and we know more about his life and it being not really the life that he presented to you? And we've been talking about getting answers to these questions, but I mean,
what I feel is this story has got bigger than him and me.
Now that there's a picture of who he is, where he lives, that's also disturbing, I think, because it's the idea that he's behind those closed curtains.
True, but then now I know who he is, I feel less scared. He built up this picture, which made him really powerful. And I'm not scared of that. We've
been doing this investigation in lifetime. We've not known where we're going to end up. Honestly, I think we've got further than I expected. We've busted through this whole characters and stories and myths. Think now that there is no characters and whatever else.
I'm learning so much about life and people from you.
It's all smoke and mirrors. So much happens because people believe that they're anonymous and they can get away with stuff. That's the world, the online world that we live in, that enables people to abuse and harass and stalk and threaten. And that's actually, in this world right now, I think, a really big message. You feel more powerful for doing the podcast, don't you?
Yeah, massively. The things that sort of kept me in my box of shame, feeling that I had made bad mistakes, which I couldn't bear to be associated with me, all those things, now I realise that I sort of own those. One of the most cathartic things for me through this whole process has been being able to post about it on my own social media rather than post like I'm having a great time. It's the first time in my life where I've been able to post about the truth, and it's so much more well received than like a selfie on a beach. And
finally, she
Carole's got what she wanted.
Yes. This is it from us for now, but we're still here at stalked at bbc.co.uk, still reading your emails. Do please write in. Who knows, we might be back. If you've been affected by any of the issues in this series, please contact support organisations in your own country. If you're listening in the UK, details of organisations offering information and support are available at bbc.co.uk/action line. Stalked is hosted by me, Carole Cadwalladr.
And me, Hannah Mossman-Moore.
The producers are Georgia Catt and Rob Byrne.
Additional research by Katie Ling and Jack Tsang.
Theme music and vocals are by Rebecca Lucy Taylor, aka Self-Esteem. Sound design by Phil Channell, Rob Byrne and Georgia Catt. The series editor is Philip Sellers.
The commissioner at BBC Sounds is Dylan Haskins.
Stalked is a BBC Studios audio production for BBC Sounds and Radio 5 Live. Thank you so much to everybody who's listened to this, who's written into us and who's shared their experiences. If you want to help this podcast get to more people, please do share it, review it, and we'd love to hear from you.
So thank you so much from me just for listening and messaging me. It has actually really changed my life, the support, and thank you.